Thank you all for joining us. Combat Community was developed to educate the public about the unique experiences of veterans, the obstacles to care, and the resources available. In this presentation, we will focus on women veterans. Swords to Plowshares has been serving the needs of veterans in the Bay Area since 1972, providing wraparound services and a continuum of care. The Institute for Veteran Policy works to ensure that all veterans have the services and support they need. We work hard to ensure that local, state, and national programs for veterans and their families are appropriate, accessible, and adapt to the community's changing needs. We hope that this presentation will give you an overview of women veterans' experiences in the military, as well as some of the transitional and gender-specific barriers they face once they leave the military. Throughout this presentation, we will point out the programs and resources to address these challenges. Women who serve in the military have unique experiences, and when they become veterans and members of our communities, they also have unique needs. This presentation will discuss the issues and barriers, as well as the responses from the Department of Defense, the Veterans Affairs, and the community. Women enlist in the military for many of the same reasons that men enlist. Women that serve in the military tend to get married at a younger age than non-veteran women. Many join the military seeking a career and to provide for their families. They also join as a way to earn a college degree and become independent with exciting and new opportunities for travel. What is military culture? From the day a young man or a woman begins their military service, they are acclimated to the environment. They learn to follow orders and follow the chain of command. They develop routines and structure. The military is unlike any other job. You are a soldier, Marine, sailor, or an airman, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are told where to be, you are told when to eat, and what to wear. The military provides everything you need, including housing, utilities, food, and clothing. Young men and women are molded. Most people adapt quickly and thrive in the predictable environment. Only about 0.5% of the entire U.S. population has ever served in the military. Women have participated in every major conflict of war in American history. One example is Margaret Corbin, who became the first woman in the United States to receive a military pension from Congress. She and her husband were defending Fort Washington. Her husband crewed one of the cannons. When her husband fell, Margaret took his place at his cannon and continued fighting until she herself was seriously wounded. She later became the first in U.S. history to receive a pension from Congress for military service. Women currently serve in 70% of military jobs and 90% of career fields, and are most likely to serve in the Army and least likely to serve in the Coast Guard. Women make up 20% of new recruits, 15% of the active duty force, 22% of the National Guard and Reserves, and 8% of the overall veteran population. Women are the most rapidly growing population in the military, and the numbers are expected to double over the next 20 years. With the increase of number of women serving, many are single parents who join the military as a way to provide for their families. Overall, about 1 in 7 active duty military personnel are women. I still believe that the American public does not understand that women are serving alongside men on the battlefield. They are experiencing the same rewards and burdens. The public does not understand the problems faced by those serving in the military or their families. The combat exclusion policy created a brass or a glass ceiling for women trying to pursue a career in the military. Although women are serving in more than 70% of the military jobs, they are not being promoted to senior ranks due to the lack of experience in critical job fields. In addition to the glass ceiling, women are fulfilling roles in the current conflict based on their gender. The military needs more women to participate in patrols, to be the gunners in the turrets on top of up-armored Humvees. They need them to search and calm the civilian women and children. but they are not receiving the same training that men receive to perform these jobs. The result is a very steep learning curve on the ground. Now that the combat exclusion policy has been rescinded, women have more opportunities than ever before. The military has until January of 2016 to implement the integration plan for women in almost all job fields. This is a move closer towards equality in the military ranks. Lioness is a documentary about a group of Army women who were trained as mechanics, supply clerks, and engineers that ended up fighting alongside the Marines in the Iraq War. This is a look at the war from the eyes of the first women in U.S. history to be sent into direct ground combat in violation of the official policy. This documentary may contain triggers. Please feel free to take a break if you need to.
When I joined the Army, I enlisted as a track vehicle mechanic. To be honest with you, I was really not expecting to ever have to fire my weapon.
It wasn't until after she came back that she told us some of the details of the firefights. When we go outside of the wire, the enemy doesn't care what gender you are. I think my soldiers had a difficult time.
I think a lot of the general public probably has no sense at all of the kinds of things women like the Lionesses are doing.
They needed a Lioness team so badly, and so many, that even as a support officer, I was pulled in.
In Iraq and Afghanistan, the Lionesses did what had to be done.
I felt like the Gestapo.
I was running with that Marine firing team, and there's insurgents all around me firing at me.
Women are technically forbidden from participating in combat.
Well, defining what is a combat job today is not so easy.
America needs to know what's going on over there, that we're over there and we're doing this.
Lioness is also available on Netflix and Amazon. In response to the growing number of those who have experienced combat, the Veteran Centers have launched a combat call center where service members, veterans, and their families can reach out for information, resources, and advice. The center is staffed by combat veterans and family members who understand the burdens and struggles after combat. The role of the National Guard is to deal with state emergencies, such as hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, or wildfires. The reserves are the backup forces supplementing the regular active duty forces. However, they are serving in the military part-time, 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. When they are not training, they fulfill full-time jobs, and the same as any other American citizen. They are bank tellers, school teachers, police officers, firefighters, bus drivers, even insurance salesmen. There has been a huge reliance on the National Guard to fill the ranks in Iraq and Afghanistan. When it comes to age, race, and ethnicity, the average age for women serving in the military is 49 years old, where the median age for men is 64. Women veterans are younger and more racially diverse than their male veteran counterparts. They are also more likely to earn lower wages and be unemployed. Many assume that women veterans are younger, but women have been serving our country in every war and conflict since the Revolutionary War. California has the largest population of veterans in the nation, and more than 10% of all women veterans. The darkest areas on the map represent the densest populations in the state. The highest populations of women veterans in California are in San Diego, Los Angeles, and the Bay Area. Women often do not self-identify as being a veteran. This lack of identification with veteran status is a barrier to seeking veteran-specific services. They also experience underemployment. They lack adequate transportation and child care options. They also underutilize VA healthcare and services. Many women feel that society in general does not readily acknowledge female veterans and their needs. When you think of a veteran, most people do not think of women. The notion that to be a veteran meant that you had to have been in combat or retired from the military. Women are focused on their day-to-day lives, and being a veteran is often not part of their identity. In addition, the VA and other service providers complicate this situation. Each institution has different guidelines when determining veteran status. For example, Swords to Plowshares will provide services to any veteran, regardless of the area or conflict they served during, regardless of the length of service, and regardless of their discharge type. Women who are transitioning from deployments or the end of their service are not only soldiers, Marines, sailors, and airmen, but they are also mothers, wives, and caregivers. More than 40% have children, and approximately 30,000 single mothers have been deployed. Women report higher levels of stress over the impact of their deployment on their families and relationships. Women often put the needs of their family over their own and may not seek the care they need. The lack of child care and transportation is often another barrier to women seeking services. Many women in the military are married to service members. Dual military families add an additional layer of stress to families in transition. We're going to watch another short clip from the documentary Lioness. This clip is about a dual military family and the effects of deployments. Again, this documentary may contain triggers. Please feel free to take a break if you need to.
Okay, these are our basic M16 rifles. It's a 5.56 millimeter. Shoot long range, short range, depending on how good you are. K-19s and machine guns, 40 mic rounds. They're real big and heavy. Our RCU remote control landmines, rocket launcher. It's pretty cool to see it actually work. These are MVGs, 7 Bravos. It's pretty cool being able to see through pitch darkness. It's a laser scope, so you can aim and fire directly at your target. When you go through basic training, you get one of these old school A2s. You go downtown shooting. It's my lovely arms room with only a few weapons. We both came back about half a day apart, knowing that, you could die any minute. Brought us a lot more closer, and it's brought our families a lot closer. This is after they towed the truck into the motor pool. They dragged me out of the windshield because we couldn't get the other door open. The truck was destroyed, and we had 1 death and 3 really bad hurt people. I was so grateful and thankful that at least the gas tank didn't explode. So it was a very awful memory.
All right, maybe.
Again, Lioness is available on Netflix and Amazon. With both parents serving in the military, do they have traditional parenting roles? Is she able to put her needs first? Don't ask, don't tell was the official United States policy on gays serving in the military up until September 2011. The policy prohibited military personnel from discriminating against or harassing closeted homosexual or bisexual service members or applicants, while barring openly gay, lesbian, or bisexual persons from serving in the military. The Act specified that service members who disclose that they are homosexual or engaged in homosexual conduct should be discharged. Women, especially women of color, were disproportionately affected by Don't Ask, Don't Tell. With the end of the Defense of Marriage Act in June and lots of litigation, same-sex couples are now eligible for veterans benefits from the VA. Despite the large number of women veterans residing in California, there is a lack of information about the VA, along with other public and private agencies that provide health, housing, education, employment, and other services to women veterans. However, are these services sufficient to meet the needs of all women veterans? Research suggests women veterans are not aware of all of the services available and are not receiving all of the help they need. Women veterans who know about benefits will access them to fulfill their needs. Many women veterans, however, lack the basic knowledge about the services and benefits that are available to them. Peer support and word of mouth, including social media, has become the gateway for information sharing. When a woman finds a resource that is sensitive to her experiences, one that gives her respect and acknowledgement for her service, and is able to help solve a problem, she will share the information with anyone that will listen. Social media is a very valuable tool to get information to veterans. We're going to take a little time to talk about physical and mental health of women veterans. Some of the frequent physical health conditions as a result of carrying heavy loads, the climate conditions, and lack of adequate personal hygiene. Women's clinics are now available at all VA hospitals and most outpatient clinics, including gender-specific primary care and women veterans program managers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this topic, but I want you to keep in mind that women are suffering from the same physical injuries you see in men returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, including paralysis, amputations, burns, and blindness. Some of the mental health concerns we're going to talk about are post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, moral injury, depression, substance abuse, and suicide. These are invisible wounds of war, injuries that are not invisible. Injuries that are invisible. Moral injury is the guilt one feels about the experiences of military service, including survivor's guilt, guilt about humanity and America's role in the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, guilt about leaving children, and guilt about the desire to serve in the military. Post-traumatic stress disorder is generally defined as an anxiety disorder that can develop after exposure to a traumatic event. Women are often treated for depression and anxiety, not post-traumatic stress. Someone with post-traumatic stress may also be dealing with family disruptions, including violence and unemployment, justice involvement, substance abuse, and homelessness. While the clinical diagnosis code for post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health disorder, it can be contrary to anti-stigmatization efforts to call a response to extremely traumatic events a disorder, especially when discussing it with your patients. And in an attempt to reduce the stigma associated with being diagnosed with a disorder, I will refer to it as post-traumatic stress, or simply PTS. PTS is a normal response to an abnormal event. Blasts and explosions from improvised explosive devices are the leading cause of traumatic brain injury. This is the signature wounds for the current conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Head injuries can occur as a result of vehicle collisions or even from falls. Traumatic brain injury is often misdiagnosed and co-occurs with other mental health conditions, including post-traumatic stress and depression. These are difficult cases to treat. Polytrauma centers treat multiple traumatic injuries, such as a serious head injury, in addition to a serious burn and post-traumatic stress. There is now an understanding that these injuries are often connected, and you have to treat the whole person and underlying conditions. Approximately 1 in 5 women and 1 in 100 men report experiencing military sexual trauma, with men making up 85% of these actual numbers are about equal between the number of men and women. However, the phrase military sexual trauma also includes sexual harassment and sexual assault that occur while someone is serving in the military. So these numbers are not all rape cases. Many veterans wait until they leave the military to seek treatment at the VA. Those who experience sexual assault could also have post-traumatic stress and depression. Please understand that post-traumatic stress as a result to exposure to combat is very different from post-traumatic stress as a result of sexual assault. Not all post-traumatic stress is the same. The Invisible War is a groundbreaking investigative documentary about rape in the military. The film follows the stories of several idealistic young servicemen and women who were raped and then betrayed when they courageously came forward to report. This documentary may contain triggers, and please feel free to take a break if you need to.
Everything changed the day that I was raped. He hit me in the head and knocked me out.
I remember holding the closet thinking, what just happened?
A month later, I found out I was pregnant.
If this is happening to me, surely I'm not the only one.
16,150 service members were assaulted in 2009.
About 500,000 women have now been sexually assaulted in the U.S. military.
They let this man get away with everything but murder.
They gave him Military Professional of the Year award during the rape investigation.
He made it very, very clear if I said anything, they were going to kill me.
Most Americans assume that there is access to a system of justice.
You would think that because the military is about protecting our country, that certainly they would want to protect their own.
We're a country who needs every good soldier to make sure we have a strong military defense.
How many women are leaving the military because they've been sexually assaulted or raped?
Civilians see it as being a military problem.
Those rapists are repetitive criminals. They do it again and again.
They go on to literally prey on women and men, girls and boys in our neighborhoods back home.
When does this ever end?
It's very difficult to do a story on the most powerful institution in the world.
The Department of Defense has a history of covering up sexual offense problems. I don't know who you think elected you to defy the Congress of the United States. What is it you're trying to hide?
Lioness, as well as The Invisible War, again, are both available on Netflix and Amazon. The most recent developments is the VA's response to how claims are processed for compensation for sexual assault and sexual harassment. In June, the House of Representatives passed the Ruth Moore Act of 2013. The ultimate goal of the bill was to make it easier for veterans and those who have suffered from sexual assault to receive service-connected disabilities and compensation as well as treatment. Veterans have a number of resources that assist victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault. The VA offers both mental and physical health treatment, but 87% of women do not use VA health services. Women may also seek non-military or community-based health care providers to assist with their needs. Many use peer support for help. Women veterans have an increased risk for depression, and they are 2 times more likely to experience a major depressive episode. Keep in mind that women are often treated for depression and anxiety, even though they may also be suffering from undiagnosed or untreated post-traumatic stress. Some of the common coping mechanisms resulting from trauma are substance abuse, violence, eating disorder, sexual promiscuity, and self-harm. Alcohol is easily accessible and relatively cheap. Undiagnosed and untreated post-traumatic stress often leads to the use and abuse of alcohol and drugs. Post-traumatic stress co-occurring with substance abuse is more common in women. This might be due to the type and frequency of trauma that women are exposed to and its impact on developing post-traumatic stress. With co-occurring disorders of post-traumatic stress and substance use, comorbidity conditions often include diagnoses such as depression, physical illnesses, lower compliances with treatment, and poor social outcomes. In addition to Swords to Plowshares, New Directions and Veterans Village of San Diego are established veterans service organizations that treat veterans with post-traumatic stress and substance abuse disorders. The number of suicides in the veteran community continues to rise. In 2010, there were 18 suicides per day. That number has risen to 22 suicides per day. That is 660 suicides per month and 7,920 suicides per year. 22 veterans commit suicide, but more than 1,000 attempt suicide. With an increase in veteran suicides, the VA established a confidential call line for veterans and their families. Mothers, spouses, and relatives are more likely to notice a change and seek help before the veteran will. Many veterans take advantage of the education benefits they earn during their military service, including the GI Bill. In addition to Swords to Plowshares, there are many organizations across the states with programs designed to get veterans back to work. Swords to Plowshares Health and Social Service Department has programs and services for veterans in the Bay Area dealing with economic hardships. In addition, the VA's case managers, social workers, and coordinators can also help provide financial resources in emergency situations. As you can see on the graph, women veterans are generally more educated than male veterans, and yet they still earn more than $10,000 less. Approximately 8% of women veterans are unemployed. The switch from the military to the civilian workforce can be challenging. Veterans can be unsure about how to apply for and how to interview for a job. Employers are often weary of seeing a lack of civilian work experience. Employers and veterans both are unclear of how skills utilized in the military can translate into a different work environment. Domestic violence is often unspoken and an unrecognized fallout stemming from military service. The statistics for women veteran victims are frightening. Women veterans and female service members are 3 times more likely than non-veterans to experience intimate partner violence. Why are the numbers so high? A large number of women are in dual military marriages, dealing with stressors from both their service and their partner service. Not all family stress is related to military service, and it's a recipe for violence in the home. However, veterans who return with mental health disorders are at risk for domestic and interpartner violence. Readjustment issues such as mental, cognitive, or physical injuries, as well as co-occurring substance abuse, depression, and irritability are known to intersect with domestic violence. The VA does not provide widespread services for families experiencing violence in the home, and while some vet centers do, not all families have access to them. Civilian providers may often treat women veterans who have experienced domestic violence, but may not be aware that the individual they're serving is a veteran. Some legal issues women veterans and military persons may seek assistance with are separations and divorces, arrest for driving under the influence, domestic violence, and child custody issues. Custody issues can become very complicated, especially when you factor in deployments, divorces, and family care plans. The VA has created a veteran justice outreach program that works closely with local courts and jails to ensure services are provided to inmates, as well as an alternative sentencing options in the cases where post-traumatic stress is a factor. Women veterans are the fastest growing cohort of the homeless population. Issues stemming from military service are often the primary causal factors for their homelessness. There may also be significant economic factors that are in play. Unemployment among young veterans is high, military pay is low, and many veteran families are dealing with debt. Disproportionately high number of homeless women veterans also have a history of sexual assault, significantly higher than stably housed women veterans. Current systems to provide women veteran housing is inadequate. There is a shortage of gender-specific and women veteran-specific housing, and finding adequate housing for women with families continues to be a challenge. Because of this, community-based housing services are taking up the charge, often without knowing that women that they are serving are veterans. Community providers and partners often report that they want to help but do not know where to find information and statistics, and have no idea where to begin to do outreach or where to find resources. Hopefully this presentation and your resources at Swords to Plowshares has provided you with the information you need to be successful in the mission to provide care and services to women veterans and their families in your community. What should providers know? Post-traumatic stress disorder, and most recently, military sexual trauma, are emerging as the issues defining this military. Despite the alarming numbers, it is important as a treatment provider and advocate to distinguish the woman veteran from the trauma she has experienced. Often, to be a victim is counter to being a warrior. Women may struggle with this, and it may impact in the way that they seek and receive treatment. While we aren't advocating for different diagnoses, we do advise that you be aware of the stigma associated with having a disorder and how it might affect treatment. Becoming aware of the military and veteran culture, knowing the triggers and challenges can be the key to a positive outcomes to treatment. Being able to understand that post-traumatic stress as a result to exposure to combat is very different than post-traumatic stress as a result of a sexual assault. Again, not all post-traumatic stress is the same. Tackling the challenges of providing flexible hours and childcare options could help to overcome some of the obstacles women face when seeking care. As previously stated, most women who serve in the military do not identify as being a veteran. If you avoid asking, "Are you a veteran?" and instead ask, "Did you serve in the military or the armed forces?" followed by some open-ended questions about her service, I will begin to develop rapport and provide you with valuable information to better serve your clients. In addition to the Combat Call Center, the Veterans Crisis Line, and the Homeless Veterans Hotline, there is also a Women Veterans Call Center that receives and responds to questions from women veterans, their families, and caregivers across the nation. Federal and state resources for veterans. This is a brief list of local, county, state, and federal programs available to qualified veterans. Both of these books are available online and through your local VA outpatient clinic or vet centers. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or give me a quick call. Some important laws affecting women veterans include the post-9/11 GI Bill, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Combat Exclusion Policy, and the Ruth Moore Act. We watched the trailers from Lioness and the Invisible War. I also recommend Poster Girl and Service When Women Come Marching Home. Poster Girl is about an all-American high school cheerleader who became the poster girl for women in combat. Since returning from Iraq, she has fought an injurious foe, post-traumatic stress disorder. The movie Service, When Women Come Marching Home, portrays the courage of the women in service and the traumas they face, as well as the inadequate care that they often receive. The film tells the compelling story of women wrestling with prostheses, homelessness, post-traumatic stress disorder, and military sexual trauma. These list of books may be very helpful, especially when you begin building trust and peer support within your women veteran clients. Informal book clubs and movie nights, it can open the doors and help you talk about some really tough subjects. I hope this presentation has given you an overview of women veterans' experience in the military, as well as some of the transitional and gender-specific barriers they face once they leave the military service, and some of the federal and community responses, as well as programs and resources to address each of these challenges. Please feel free to email me or call me with any questions you might have. Thank you for joining us, and this time I will turn it back over to Joanne.
This presentation has been brought to you by Swords to Plowshares. Thank you to our viewers. This concludes the webinar.